I'm gonna try to be creative today and give you some tips for running in the heat that are not the typical advice you'll find everywhere.
Let me start with the 3 most common tips. Obviously, you can run inside on a treadmill if you have access to one. Personally, I don't really like it because I find it extremely boring, and also I end up sweating just as much as when I run outside, because there is no airflow, no winds, I don't have a fan in front of me, and also the temperature in a gym is typically okay for weightlifting and maybe a little bit of cardio, but not really for running like 90 minutes or 2 hours. Secondly, obviously run in the shade if you can, if there is shade, yeah, obviously.
The most important is to really understand how your body's cooling mechanism works, and sweat is the name of the game here. So don't try to avoid sweating, don't use any anti-sweat spray or whatever.
And then there is the very typical piece of advice to run either a very early morning or late evening, or maybe even at night, so the sun is lower. And that's not bad advice, but I'd like to debunk it a little bit, if I may. Number 1, during these hours there's typically more humidity, so what you gain temperature wise, you typically lose in terms of humidity. And depending on where you live, like for instance here by the sea, the temperature difference between dawn and midday is not that much. On the other hand, the humidity at dawn and sunset is quite high, so I'm not sure what's worse. 2, during early and late hours or even at night, there's typically more insects, mosquitoes and bugs alike that are very annoying and get in your eyes and so on, so be aware of that. Also, the sun is obviously lower on the horizon at these hours, so it's much more likely to get right into your eyes, which is also very annoying. 4, running very early or very late is quite likely to somehow interfere with your normal life, your normal schedule, your family, and so it probably requires sacrificing some of the things in your life which well, you may not want to. And similarly, it implies you will get significantly less hours of sleep. For instance, if you want to run late evening, that means you typically get home by 9:30 or 10 p.m. and then it's much harder for your body to calm down and fall asleep. And similarly, if you want to run early morning, well, then you have to wake up very early.
Run on dirt path if you can, or even on grass. Rather than on tarmac, because tarmac retains the heat and is definitely noticeable. May make a couple of degrees of difference. Now watch out with running on grass, don't roll your ankle.
I explained it comprehensively in a previous video, I'll put a link there, but it's important to sweat and to allow the sweat to evaporate, which is the phenomenon that cools you down. So for this, of course, you need to do whatever you can to facilitate evaporation. For instance, if your shirt is wet, like completely drenched, you may have heard the advice to get a new one. You might have a spare one in your car, for instance. Well, that's not really good advice. You do want to maintain a wet shirt and make sure sweat can evaporate in contact with your skin in order to generate cold.
Make use of every little bit of shade you can find on your way, even if it's intermittent and lasts only for like 1 second, like shadows of trees. It adds up, and you can actually feel the shade and the absence of sun radiation on your body immediately. So even if it's just 1 second, it counts.
So a tip on its own is to take very good care of your sleep. In summer, the night is naturally shorter, so you tend to get less sleep. And additionally, the temperature of your bedroom is probably too warm, so it's gonna be difficult to fall asleep and to maintain a good sleep quality during the night, much more so than in winter. And as running in the heat is quite hard on your body, you need to recover properly, and so do whatever you can to make sure you get enough and good quality sleep in summertime.
Run outside of big cities, city centers, even if there is no shade. The fact that there is some vegetation and greenery does bring the temperature down, as opposed to the city center where there is a lot of traffic and then all the air conditioning devices spitting out heat, and all the buildings retaining the heat, and the tarmac and everything. City centers can be easily 3, 4, 5 degrees Celsius warmer than the countryside. If you really cannot reach outside the city, and try to find a park or something that has some vegetation.
Get heat acclimated progressively but consistently. So if you run only once a week in the heat, that's not enough, and you will never get acclimated, and then you will struggle every time you run.
Like I said, if you can avoid running on tarmac, it's better.
Also, don't run on the track, or at least be aware that in general athletics track tend to accumulate heat, and they're also unlikely to have any shade at all, and on the other hand they're also more likely to be shielded somehow from the wind, which is not necessarily a good thing, because as I said before, we do want a little bit of wind to help cool us down via evaporation of sweat.
Not all tarmacs are made equal. This one, for instance, where I'm running, it has the tar in quite a high proportion of gravel and stones, and as you can see, it's not that black, it's not so dark, and it's actually not that hot. I mean, I can it's not really very hot as opposed to other roads that are black, you know, darker, with a high proportion of tar, and you can sense the tar is almost melting. Obviously you don't want to run on that.
Then seek a light headwind. Now of course you don't want to be struggling, pushing like into very hard wind, but you do want a gentle breeze to help the evaporation in the front side of your body, like in your face and chest. You will notice that it definitely feels a lot cooler with the gentle headwinds than it does with tailwind.
In races, when you see runners drink from the bottle and then spill a reminder of the bottle on the top of the head, don't spill the water on your hair or your cap, because then it will quickly drain away and will not have time to reach your skin and then evaporate. So it's a much better idea to basically throw water at your face, or even your arms, your hands, or your chest.
Generally speaking, get used to the heat, not just running but also during the day. Like, I don't know, take your dog out for a walk or whatever. Don't just spend the whole day with the air conditioning, because then when you decide to go running, it will be like a big shock to your system. And not only that, but also mentally, when you feel the temperature difference with the comfort of the aircon, your brain will go, no.
And one more thing, shave your beard if you want to facilitate evaporation. Believe me, I've been there.
So how to dress for the heat? Well, I'm not going to cover that today, because I already published a specific video just about that, so you can go and watch it after this one. I put a link there. Just one thing I didn't mention in that video, I see a lot of people running with their shirts like that inside their shorts. Now, come on guys, let it breathe.
Pay attention to the air quality. Now obviously it's gonna be better in the countryside than in city centers in general.
Adapt your training zones, typically shift them like 4 or 5 beats per minute up at least, so your heart will beat faster, but don't worry, that's normal, and in fact it's all explained in the heat acclimation video. So adapt your training zones and also be flexible with your training plan. So be flexible enough to do your harder sessions on the more favorable days if you get any, and then stick to easy runs and long runs on the hotter days.
In Spain we have a phenomenon that is quite recurrent from time to time. We get dust from the Sahara Desert, and you can see the sky is like orange, milky. You may not notice it at first, but it takes a toll on your lungs. So that's an example, but on those days you don't want to run too much.
Cooling devices, like the one you could see in the Olympic marathon last summer. Well, in reality that works pretty much in the same way as sweat evaporation. So you have to soak the thing in water. It keeps water for a while, and water evaporates via an increased surface in contact with the air, so it cools you down, but it's basically the same as sweat evaporating. Plus it's cumbersome, and you have to make sure to soak it every now and then in water, so there is some logistics to it. So yeah, I'm not sure it's really worth the investment.
And obviously in the countryside you're much more likely to get clean air with more oxygen, because of all the plants and trees that generate oxygen, much more so than in city centers where you get much more carbon dioxide and pollution. Of course, that's also the case in winter, but it's more noticeable in summer.
Drink often. I typically stop for drinking every 2 to 3 kilometers. Don't be afraid to stop, especially on your easy runs, long runs. even intervals. Now I'm lucky enough to have a few fountains where I usually run, so I don't have to worry about carrying water with me. But sometimes if I go to places where I know there are no fountains, then I take a flask that I hide in a bush somewhere in the shade, and then typically run laps of 1 to 3 kilometers. So I pass by the flask often enough. And better than a soft flask, I sometimes use a thermos bottle that will keep the water cool enough for perhaps 90 minutes.
Since you will sweat a lot more than in the winter, and perhaps you even try to cool you down by throwing some water at you, your shirt, your t-shirt or singlet will get drenched much more quickly, and therefore will also become heavier and then stick to your skin, and it will start chafing on your nipples a lot sooner, and we don't want that. So yeah, you know what to do. Just be aware of that.
Take salt tablets or a specific electrolytes drink either before or after your run. Now, if you're gonna run for more than 90 minutes to 2 hours, then you should also take electrolytes during the run. The best option I've found for that is a sachet of powder that is supposed to be dissolved. Let me show you. Some of these are supposed to be dissolved in water, but I can stick them in my pocket, and if I don't have water with me, I just rely on the fountains. Then I can actually swallow this dry and then drink from the fountain afterwards. Also, drink extra water when you get home. You do need to replace all the water and the salt you have lost during the run via sweat, but also via exhalation. You may not realize, but you lose more body water as water vapor when you exhale than you do via sweating. Drink even if the water is hot. Yeah, I know it's not nice, but you need to drink.
Water is boiling. It's hot water.
Again, you need to replace the water you're losing, but what is cooling you down is the evaporation of the sweat water. It's not drinking cold water. By the way, these tips are for running in the heat, but not for running like in the desert. So I assume you have access to water. Now, if you run like in the desert, then you need to take it completely differently. You want to conserve the water in your body. You want to avoid sweating. So it's completely different.
Now, if you're really struggling to run in the heat and your heart rate is skyrocketing and you cannot keep it at reasonable levels, then perhaps strategy you may want to consider is to run very slightly downhill. I don't know if you live near a river, for instance. Take public transport to go upstream at the river for whatever distance you want to run, and then run alongside the river with a very gentle downhill slope, but really something like 0.5% or something. It's not really a strategy to cool you down, but will make it easier. So if that can make the difference between running and not running for you, then that's an idea. You may be able to get your heart rate a few beats per minute lower, but again, it has to be a very gentle downhill, nothing steep, because then otherwise it will alter your stride, and you don't want that.
Don't drink too much coffee. I mean, if heat is going to bring your heart rate up, then it might not be a good idea to add coffee to it. Also, don't eat too much and leave at least 2 hours to digest the food before running, because when you run, blood will be sent to your muscles and also to your skin to cool you down, and so it will not go to your stomach, and that may cause interruption of digestion if it's not finished. Now, don't drink alcohol, just don't, okay? I know it's very tempting and it's very difficult to resist cold beer when you get home after running in the heat, or maybe even after a race, but just don't do it. It's really a bad idea, and it's even worse if you drink before running. Alcohol does not combine well with heat, so just stay away from it.
Perhaps an idea that is worth considering is like running on a straight course, like one way, because then you have full control over where the sun is and where the shade is, so you can find a shaded course, and also the direction of the wind, so you can run into the wind, which helps cooling you down. Slight wind, of course. Yeah, one-way course, and then come back by train perhaps.
Now, if you have to race in the heat, I've got one little extra tip for you. Clip your bib rather in the lower part of your shirt, like around your belly, rather than your chest area, because the bib is typically made of material that is not breathable at all, and it's better to cover your belly than your chest in terms of facilitating evaporation and cooling you down.